Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. So in this quote, Carl Jung is talking about the shadow. And so in this video, we're going to be taking a deep dive into what shadow work actually is, the most common areas that it comes up for people, and how to tell if it's hijacking you. And lastly, I'm going to give you guys an actual 3-stage process to work with your shadow in depth. So if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button, click the bell, and you'll be notified when I release new videos on spirituality, personal development, healing, and all the things. So let's get into it. We have all been socialized. We've all been brought up in a culture. And so enculturation, a byproduct of that process, is repression, is the shadow. Because as children, we learn certain things are good, certain things are bad. Boys don't cry. Children are meant to be seen and not heard. Girls always close their legs and look good, whatever it is, right? Like whatever you were told. We learn to cut off and bury those parts of ourselves and overcompensate and amplify socially acceptable parts, like being quiet, being obedient, being calm. And this process is what creates the initial split. And so we have the shadow self and the part of our awareness that we're conscious of, the personality, the ego. And just to paint that picture a little bit clearer, if you repress anger, which a lot of people do, if you repress anger, then you're gonna have a certain area of the emotional spectrum of life that you're not tapped into. So unconsciously, on some level, you're gonna feel like there's a part of you that's missing. And no matter what you do externally, no matter how much money you make, what relationships you have, yada, 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 you're gonna feel that hole, that void that can't be filled by anything except reclaiming that part of yourself. So this is why shadow work is so important and also so liberating. And so with that, let's talk about the most common areas that this comes up for people. And there's 4 areas I've found where the shadow self really likes to live. 1 is emotional avoidance. So any emotions that are deemed bad, whether you're aware of it or not. So I just gave the example of anger. 2 is any triggers, anything that triggers you in someone else immediately. Okay? 3 is unprocessed trauma, and 4 is projection. So all of these 4 areas really touch each other, and it's hard to separate them. They all kind of weave together and create like the complex where our shadow arises from it. And I'll break it down for you so you can see what I mean. So we were talking about anger, right? Let's just continue on that thread. If I'm someone who doesn't allow myself to feel anger, or like, oh, I just never get angry, are you that person? If that's the case, you can be sure that you're repressing it, because anger is part of the human experience. It's something that's been demonized in the spiritual community. I have a video on why anger is actually healthy and valid and good, and I'll post the link to that in the description. But at any rate, all of these areas touch each other, because if you're avoiding an emotion, so emotional avoidance, anger, you're gonna end up projecting it onto someone else. So you're going to attract people into your space who are in touch with their anger, whether it's a healthy form of it or a dysfunctional form of it. So you might have someone, a partner in your life who expresses anger in a healthy way, but it still triggers you because you haven't owned it. Boom. So you see how the trigger comes in, emotional avoidance, the trigger, the projection. It's all tied together, and it usually stems from a trauma. And a trauma doesn't have to be like getting raped or physically abused or any of those things, which are definitely traumas, but it could be something as simple as like being repeatedly yelled at when you were a child, being left alone, not having your needs met, not being validated, having your reality, your emotions invalidated. So these 4 areas all kind of intermingle together, and this is how you can start to see, okay, where is this playing out for me? Where is this playing out in my life? Once you have that awareness on some level, we can step into this 3-stage process of how to actually do in-depth shadow work. So you're probably not going to find this information in a lot of other videos, because we're going to be working on a somatic level as well as a mental level, not just the thoughts and the stories, but also how this gets stored in the body, because the body is the unconscious storehouse for the mind. Okay, so this 3-step process is somatic, meaning the body, it's mental, the psyche, and it's external. Okay, because if we don't take this work outside and shift the context of our lives, it's just going to keep playing out. So that is the 3-stage process. I'm going to go into the somatic and mental levels first, and then we'll take it to the external. So obviously the mind-body is connected, right? So you can't really talk about one without the other. And so to do this work, we're going to be working with our nervous system, with our biology, our physiology, as well as the shadow in the mind. You want to use that roadmap or that framework that I just described to you to be able to see where your shadows could be showing up. Okay, do I experience anger? Do I avoid my sadness? Do I run away from confrontation? And once you have that awareness, bring your consciousness into your body and see how it's showing up for you in your body. Okay, so if you feel like you are going to get in trouble, for example, like you do something wrong, or your friend or your romantic partner is mad at you, and there's some sort of confrontation, what is happening in your body? Is there a closing down? Is there a fight or flight response, a fast heartbeat, right? So this is how you know, okay, this is bringing up a trigger, this is bringing up a part of myself that is not integrated, this is my shadow. And because, trauma is relegated to the area of the shadow, because as young children, we actually don't have the nervous system to process intense emotional experiences, so they get pushed down into the body, into the shadow, and that's why we have a physiological response, as well as like the mental story or the block around whatever is occurring. And so the way to work with this is to sit down, have your feet on the ground, have your hands on your body, and to bring your awareness into your feet. To bring your awareness into your feet, to sense and feel your feet. Not think about it, but to sense your feet. To ground yourself in your body. And then to feel whatever activation. So if you have butterflies in your stomach, if your throat is closing, whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be in the moment. If you ever trigger throughout your day, you could do this when you get home in a safe space and just kind of revisit the memory or the experience in your mind. This is how you do it. Begin to feel it in your body. And if it's comfortable for you, you can close your eyes. If not, you can keep them open. But you sense it, just like how I can sense a different part of my body with my awareness. I'm feeling it. I'm not thinking about my arm. I'm actually sensing and feeling my arm internally. I'm putting my awareness there and feeling it. Okay, most people have a fear of feeling, so this is going to take some time to rewire this pathway. Wherever you're feeling that activation, let's say I'm feeling my heartbeat and I'm feeling my throat close and I'm being confronted and it's activating for me. I'm going to put my hand wherever I feel that and breathe into it. Close my eyes if you can do that, if you have the capacity for that, and breathe and sense and feel and stay with it. Stay with that emotion, only for a few seconds. You want to work with this in micro moments. You don't want to do this for like 10, 15, 20 minutes. Guys, I'm talking about like 10, 15, 30 seconds of feeling this and breathing, and then shaking it out. Literally shaking helps to release stagnant energy and trauma in the body. It's what animals do in the wild, okay? And so this is just about taking a little bite, because how we integrate and process the shadow is in small doses. You wouldn't give like a huge steak to a baby. Like they just wouldn't be able to digest it. And it's the same thing, guys. Most people are walking around with nervous systems that stopped developing in childhood because we're not taught the tools of how to actually deal with this stuff, of how to actually process our emotions, of how to do it in an embodied way. So this is shadow work in the form of embodiment. You can like be aware of this stuff and write it out and talk to yourself and do all that all day. But until we actually learn how to be in our body with this stuff, then it doesn't get to be metabolized. Our emotions and our shadow needs to be digested just like we digest our food. And we do that in small little bites. And so over time, you're building up the somatic body to actually be comfortable with this stuff. Actually be comfortable with anger, be comfortable with your grief, be comfortable with that trauma, whatever it is, right? And this is how we start to do this shadow work on a somatic level as well as a mental level. So we're aware of it mentally first, using the framework that I gave you, and then we go and take it to the body and start to integrate it. And so lastly, the last piece of the puzzle here is taking it external. Once you do this work for yourself, how can you actually start to, again, embody this aspect of yourself that you lost? What that might look like is setting boundaries with certain people in your life. What that might look like is actually expressing your emotions more in the moment. What that might look like is getting more in touch with your inner child, with your joy, with your expression. This is where we take the work out into our lives and actually create a new reality. And so I have so many resources for you. Like I said, you could check out the other videos, and you can download the shadow workbook that I have totally free, and it can assist you in like really going deep and seeing how the shadow shows up for you. So guys, this is an overview of what shadow work is and how to do it, how to apply this in your life. That's all I got for you today. If you liked this, please again be sure to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, drop a comment, share it with a friend, and I will catch you in the next video.